Hello, beautiful people. Danielle here, your intuitive alchemist, and I don't even know what to call myself anymore because I feel like my evolution and my transformation. I'm just going to say I'm Danielle. Beautiful to see you. If you haven't met me before and you've only just started following me, I hope you get some value from this video. I was just spending some time collecting. We went shopping and getting some things to make dream catchers, and I was driving and I was thinking about content and some responses I get from people that follow me. Sometimes I can get some really sympathetic, empathic, worried responses. Sometimes people think that I overthink or I'm too serious, and it's interesting actually. And I'm like, what is this actually about? Like, why would it be perceived that I'm not doing well? Or why would it be perceived that I need so much encouragement and support in that space? And I mean, of course, on your spiritual journey, you do need a lot of support. You need to find a tribe that you can have honest conversations with, people that can actually pull you up in your shit, people that don't just go into the victim mindset with you, but have a way that can help question you or hold space for you or just be in presence with you. And so that is a requirement on this journey, is connection, genuine, authentic, real connection. But what came really clear for me in this last 24 hours from the post that I sent around this wounding that I was going through, and it was a small trigger it wasn't a small trigger. It was my reaction to the trigger was relevant to how much unconscious, repressed pain my inner child has been feeling. So there's no such thing as an overreaction. That's something that I want every single person to sit with for a moment and go, okay, no such thing as an overreaction in my internal or my external world. Every reaction you have to something is appropriate for the life experience, the trauma, and the belief systems that you hold. So have some compassion for yourself and others, one. But the experience that happened was very minor compared to my physical internal reaction. And that was beautiful. It was an absolute gift because for me, I've done so much work on my childhood experiences, looking at my belief systems, looking at my values, look at my core wounds, looking at my trauma, looking at how my programs play out due to society and my life choices. And that is at times very painful. And I think sometimes when you're doing a lot of shadow work and you're doing a lot of reprogramming and you're doing a lot of looking at your belief systems and why and your patterns and your mind, then what happens is you can focus a lot on that, especially when you work in my field, like the sharing of that. You can share a lot around those big shifts. You share around those moments of like what patterns may be playing out so that you can have people that can find an alarm. So you can have a resonance to people, so people can feel, okay, I'm not alone. So they can see that you can move through these things, that by looking in ownership of your behavior and deciding, oh yeah, this thing actually really has affected me. And if I look at it and I bring the shadow up to the light, then I have a choice to choose something different. And I think there may be a misconception around doing this work. And I have also been told I overthink and I'm quite, I make things more complicated than life, and life should be simple. And I mean, sure, that is so true. But the other side of it is that simplicity is on the other side of complexity. And until you live in both polarities and until you understand every single perspective that you can around yourself and the universe, then you can't really choose the simplicity. Because you don't have the awareness, you don't have the understanding. And while we're in complexity, we're usually in some form of suffering. But you have to move through those challenging situations, that adversity, that trauma, that life experience, and that contrast to come into the simplicity of life and the joy and the simpleness, and to let go and to choose presence and to choose peace. And the only way that we can get to that point is we come into this life in a complete state of joy and being. And then what happens is we live. And life, for most of us, has not been that, because we weren't taught those tools, and we have our own specific soul journey. Each single individual here has their own soul's path and soul's journey, and they will experience exactly what they need to come into that understanding of simplicity, of your heart center, of presence, of non-reaction, of no resistance, of surrender. And the more that I go into those deep, dark, shadowy places, and some of those things, I'm not overcomplicating, but I do have to look at them, because if I don't, then what I'm doing is I'm just going into some form of spiritual bypassing, or I'm going into some form of suppression and disassociation, because I'm sticking to, well, life's good, you got to think positive, you got to do all the fun stuff and look at the light and it's all love and blah blah blah. But that's one side of polarity, and that's not the truth of this existence. We live in light and dark. But to come into more, I would say, contentment, which is a consistence, and you can be in a level of contentment in both, I would say, neutrality probably is the best word. You go through these things, and neutrality, and when you come into peace and allowance and acceptance, that is joyful. Like, my life is full of so much to be grateful for, so many things to be joyful for. My friendships are like deep and intimate connections where people can genuinely bring all of themselves there and not feel judged. And I can do the same and have someone hold space for that, and to be there and to ask a question. And then I've got family relationships, my relationships with my sisters and my mom, and the constant evolution of what that looks like because of the internal work that I'm doing, which means when I'm working on the way I respond and react to people, then they automatically change. So it's not all doom and gloom. It takes ownership and responsibility to look at that. But when you look at that and you see it, then you have choice. And choice creates joy. Choice creates happiness, and it creates ease. But until you get to a point that you actually are the creator of the universe and you do get to choose, then you can sometimes see things only from where you're at, right? And we all go through different stages on our evolution. As much as we can only see people where we're at. So if somebody's not understanding where you're at, and maybe you're feeling judged for it, it's just because they aren't seeing where you're at. And that's okay, because we all go through this differently at different rates and through different experiences. And that's a part of allowance. That's a part of acceptance. That's a part of, having compassion for somebody on their journey. And when I share these things about myself, it's not to get sympathy or empathy or encouragement. It's to share from what I found within myself, so that people can go, oh, okay, maybe there's something there for me to look at too. Or to give that understanding that when you see these things, you break a cycle and a pattern. We're going through these patterns and cycles that were produced in childhood through whatever experience, where our little inner child has made this belief of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, or I must do this to get this attention, or I only receive love if I do this, or I can only get happiness or fulfillment if I give this part of myself. And that's what we continue to do as an adult over and over and over until you start to look at the patterns and why you're doing it for the good reasons and why you're doing it for the so-called bad reasons, the limiting reasons. And you can't come into a conscious choice until you look at both sides. So when you do get to that point, though, that you can look at both sides, then you have the ability to just let go. This like level of complete surrender, complete trust. And that's where the joy is of life. But it takes the work, and it's not as easy as just let it go or, you know, stop overcomplicating things or you're overanalyzing. There's no way in hell that I would have done the amount of work that I've done if I hadn't have put the amount of mental and energetic work into what I've done. Because the amount of work that I've done in 2 years is what would take people over a decade to do. And that's because I have a commitment to myself. That's the commitment that I have. I've got this strong commitment and demand, and I'm so grateful that I have, because when you have discipline with something, that's where you create change and amazing things come out of that. You know, you have amazing success in your work, you have amazing success in your health, you have amazing success in your creative projects, you have amazing success in your relationships and your friendships. All right. I love you. Any comments below? I would love to see, and I will talk to you soon.